Hello, lovelies. It's Carmen, the Star Lady here. It has been a while, and I want to apologize for that. I am currently, and probably for the next little while, going to be working out this fine balance between working full-time and being able to record videos that are worthy of your time. Work has been really busy, so I've had a bit of a delay in getting to these videos. But my thoughts have been with you and with the astrology, even though I haven't been showing up here on YouTube. So I wanted to get back to what I was doing before. So I'll be looking at the second week of October from the 6th to the 12th. Of October to see, to talk a little bit about the astrology and how that might be showing up for you. I do want to note that we did have a transit on the 1st of October. That was in the first week of October, but I'll talk a little bit about that here. So something last Wednesday, October 1st, some things you might have been experiencing. Around that transit, we had Jupiter and Mercury in a square. Mercury in Libra and Jupiter in Cancer. Jupiter is in the more prominent position there, so influencing that transit a little bit more. And what we know about Mercury transits, or any transits that engage Mercury, is that it's always quite quick, quite fleeting. Mercury is the fastest moving planet. So whatever archetypes Mercury might be touching on in his connection and communication with other planets is likely going to be quick and pass quickly, which, you know, when it's maybe a little bit more of a difficult thing, we like that. So anyway, so this would have been a quick transit happening last Wednesday, October 1st. So in this square, some of the things you might have been experiencing was like great inspiration, ideas, thoughts around maybe a project or in your relationships. Your communication might have been really clear and beautiful and healing and bringing you together with your partners or your friends or your family. Work might have been like a project you're working on, whether it's a book or, you know, a collective project with other people. Likely great inspiration and enthusiasm around that project could have been happening for you last Wednesday. There also could have been a tendency for boastfulness or arrogance. Sometimes Jupiter can show up in that way, and with Mercury, you know, the god of communication, both thoughts and words, there might have been a sense of like, you know, I've got this, or I'm better than that person, or a sense of overconfidence and arrogance that could have shown up for you. So that would have been a quick transit for you last Wednesday. So I'm now going to move into the second week of October, and we've got a few transits happening this week that I would like to touch on. And so here we go. I wanted to note that the biggest transit we're having this week is the full moon in Aries, happening on October 6th or 7th, depending on where you are in the world. So this is happening in the sign of Aries, and what I'd like to do is tomorrow I'm going to post some shorter videos on doing astrological reading for your sign for this full moon in Aries, pulling a tarot card to kind of give some clarification around that for you. So look for those videos tomorrow. But I want to talk a little bit, break down how that might be showing up generally for the collective. And on Monday, this full moon in Aries is not the only transit we're happening. We also have Mercury moving into Scorpio. And what's really interesting about this is that both Aries and Scorpio are ruled by Mars. So we have a lot of busyness, a lot of things happening in the Mars-ruled signs. And what's really interesting here is we have Mars in Scorpio at the moment. So when Mercury moves into Scorpio, he will be co-present with Mars. And likely with Mercury moving into Scorpio, you're likely going to find yourself in deep thoughts about things. It could be an initiation of a time of deep reflection on some areas of your life. And depending what house Scorpio is in for you, will likely impact the areas around those themes that you're thinking deeply about it. Again, I know I've shared this in previous videos, is that I come at this from a Hellenistic perspective. And so each house, the 12 houses of the zodiac wheel, are assigned a certain sign depending on the time of your birth. So for interest sakes, or for as an example, say you're a Scorpio rising, so Scorpio's in your first house. You have Mars in your first house, and Mercury is going to be moving into the first house as well. So what you might be finding is there might be some communication happening for you around who you are and how you show up in the world, and sharing that with other people. You're likely going to be a little more decisive and direct in how you navigate the world, having Mars, your ruler, in your first house. So Mars and Mercury are going to be working together in this sign of Scorpio. With the co-present nature of these two planets, you're likely to be experiencing a passionate or deep mental clarity around an issue that you've been facing. With Mars co-present with Mercury and Scorpio, a sense of determination or decisive communication about a thing that maybe you've been mulling over. Again, with Mercury and Scorpio, you might be thinking deeply about something, and then with Mars co-present there, that you're like clear in your decision and your communication with others around that. There could even be some because Mercury speaks to communication, some sharp humor or opinions that you might be expressing in the world. Now with Mars there as well, Mars is about courage, he's about action, he's about decisiveness, but he can also be ornery, he can be a little bit belligerent, he likes to stir things up as well. So what you might be finding with Mars co-present with Mercury is this kind of heated words with people. There might be some hurtful or pointed sarcasm, insults, that, Mars might be a little bit messy depending on where he's showing up in your chart and if there are other planets present there from your natal chart and things like that. It's always going to flavor how these archetypes show up in your life, right? So what is important to notice is that the planets archetypally represent a spectrum. It's not binary, it's not good or bad, it's a both and. So with Mars and Mercury, you can have some clear, decisive communication. You can also have some hurtful sarcasm that could happen as well. So just pay attention to and be mindful around how that might be showing up for you. And I think the fact that this is happening in Scorpio, water, feminine sign ruled by Mars, a deep, deep feeling and thinking sign, that there might be some things that are going on in your life that you may not want other people to know about. And with Mercury and Mars there, you might be needing to make some decisions around these things that happen in your life. So you might need to make decisions or communicate things in a more subtle way, if it's things you don't want other people to be aware of. And I just want to apologize there. I inadvertently kicked my light and knocked it over, so I had to pause the video. So I'm back at it now. Sorry about that. So looking at this full moon that is happening in the sign of Aries. So like I said, I'm going to be doing short astrology reads with a tarot card pull for each of the signs. But generally speaking, this full moon is going to indicate something coming to fruition for you around seeds that were planted with the new moon in Aries, which happened March 29th of this year. So I would invite you to take a look back on what was kind of going on for you at that time in your life. It's so funny. In preparation for this video, I thought, let's take a look at what was going on for me. And there's a lot of things around taxes. I was getting ready to submit my taxes and that type of thing. And so I'm like, that's interesting. Let's see if there's anything that comes up. Another thing that happened, Aries happens for me to be in my 4th house of home and family, family karma, parents. I did on the 30th of March, I had brunch with my sisters. So I'm wondering if there's something that might be coming up around my relationships with my sisters and maybe my family of origin. So anyway, take a look back at your diary. Maybe you can get a sense of what was going on for you around March 29th of this year. And that's likely you're going to see some fruition or things coming to completion or realization around some of those topics. But do look for my shorter videos that I'll be releasing for the signs tomorrow to see how that might show up for you. Awesome. Okay, so that's Monday. I want to move into Tuesday now. We have another transit with Mercury. And again, so with Mercury, things are going to move a little bit quicker, right? He's the fastest moving planet. So it might just be like a boom and then gone type thing. So Mercury from Scorpio is going to be squaring Pluto in Aquarius. And what's interesting is in about a week from now, we are going to have Pluto going direct. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a future video. So we have Mercury, the god who represents communication, commerce, business, some technology and functionality, squaring Pluto, the god of the underworld, who brings up like these deeper things for us. Pluto can also represent like sex and desire too. So some of the things you might be experiencing is thoughts or communications around deeply felt topics. I noted here as I was preparing for this video, you might be having some deep thoughts come Tuesday, October 7th, which reminded me the SNL skit of Stuart Smalley. Now, I'm dating myself with saying this. It was a bit of an older skit, but it was this skit where it was Stuart Smalley and he'd be having deep reflections, looking in a mirror and talking about like deep thoughts. So it made me think a little bit about that video, that you might be experiencing, that kind of looking in the mirror moment about some of the deeper things that are going on for you and communicating that or thinking about that. The square could also indicate or show up as a profound curiosity around a topic. Maybe there's something you are interested in, but you're feeling like more of a draw or a pull to that topic. There could be some deep analysis happening for you. You might be noticing details around a project or in your relationships and communication, like small things that maybe you wouldn't have noticed before. You're really picking up on that. There could be some persuasive communications happening. I apologize, there's a fire truck going by. So there might be some persuasive communications that are happening, whether you're offering them or your partner or a family member or a colleague is offering those, that you might actually have your thoughts change on something. So a breakdown of old philosophical certainties. You might be changing your opinion on something. As mentioned, Pluto can represent sex and desire, so there could be some thoughts around expressing yourself sensually or sexually. There could be a talk with your partner about maybe something new you'd like to try. There could also, on maybe a more of the difficult side of things, be an obsession or a fixation on a certain thing. So be mindful of those types of things. As well, Pluto being god of the underworld, another of the archetypes that could show up is fear. So there could be some kind of like obsessive thoughts around something that you're afraid of. And as I mentioned, maybe a change in thinking on something. So again, this is a quick transit that's happening on Tuesday, October 7th, but just be aware of how that might be showing up for you in your life. And again, depending on where Scorpio and where Aquarius are in your chart, it can speak to those topics that you might be experiencing. Wednesday, October 8th, we have Venus sextiling Jupiter, and this is a little sweet connection between the two benefics. So Venus is currently in Virgo, where she is fallen, and Jupiter is currently in Cancer, where he's exalted. And Jupiter is in what we call an overcoming sextile. So he has a more of an influence in this transit than Venus does. He's also better positioned than she is. She's fallen in Virgo. So what that could look like for you is feelings of some grand happiness, a sense of everything being right with the world, which is, something that would be nice right now, to feel like things are right with the world. There could be a sense of enjoyment in life, supportive and positive connections with those in your life, sensing or just feeling overwhelmed with a sense of expansive beauty in the world. Some of the kind of more shadow sides of that there could be a little bit of indulgence, that, maybe you eat 7 too many cookies or something like that. There could be some snobbery, Jupiter and Venus together in this way. It could be a little bit like, oh, they're not part of our group type thing. Also maybe some social climbing, or people have some ambition. So you might be aware of some people showing up maybe in a less authentic way. Friendliness. It could be maybe too friendly or too sweet in its engagement. There could be like an overblown or gaudy aesthetic, like something is just too much of a thing, right? And there could be some laziness and passivity that could happen. It's like, just imagine Venus lounging on her chaise and eating multiple bonbons or something, and just like, that kind of sense of like lack of activity, but a pursuit of pleasure in a way. So that's Wednesday, October 8th, with Venus sextiling Jupiter. And then Saturday, October 11th, which will be my last delineation for this video, we have Venus opposite Saturn. So Venus is in Virgo and Saturn is in Pisces right now. Saturn retrograded back into Pisces on September 7th of this year. So there's this opposition between the two planets. And opposition, you might think, oh, that sounds like it's a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. In astrology, it's really important that we don't look at it in a binary sense. Each of the planets have like a spectrum of archetypes, and they can show up in positive ways and more difficult ways, or both and. And so there isn't just either or, it's a both and approach. So with Venus being opposite Saturn, all this means is that Venus from Virgo is communicating in an equal dance with Saturn in Pisces. And what's interesting is Venus is fallen in Virgo, but she's exalted in Pisces. So Saturn is in a sign where Venus can revel and be really expressive about who she is. And Saturn in Pisces is not in the most comfortable position for himself. Pisces is a feminine water sign, really in the feels. Saturn's not really about that, but spending time in Pisces is an invitation for Saturn to kind of explore those topics that he's maybe less comfortable with. So with Venus in this dance with Saturn across the sky, we have likely how that can show up in your life is a feeling of responsibility, a feeling of renewed commitment in your relationships, good working partnerships. Like, yeah, this is really working. We're dedicated to this. There might be some intentionality around romance and some intentionality around remembering why it is you chose that person, or remembering why it is you engaged in this work activity or this creative project. Like, yeah, this is really what I want to do. With Venus and Saturn, there can really be this blending of beauty and integrity together, and it can be really a beautiful expression. There can be a joy in discipline and structure, and finding like, yeah, this is, maybe you're the type of person who's been a little bit chaotic and all over the place, and yet with this transit you're finding that there's a sense of joy in the structure that you're experiencing. Also, another way that this transit can show up for you is, maybe feeling a little bit bored in your relationships. Like, you're like, this is a little ho-hum. I'm not quite sure how I feel about this. You could experience a cooling of affections with those in your life, whether it's family or friends or partners. There could be an underscored sense of responsibility and awareness of the burdens and responsibility that you carry in your life. There could also be a sense of feeling lonely and a fear of reaching out for support, like a little bit of a sense of isolationism. Saturn a little bit Saturn rules hermits and mystics and those who go away, for spiritual retreats and meditation. So there's an element of Saturn that touches on isolation. So you might be feeling a little bit of that. You might have some doubts around what other people think about you. And you might be like, I don't know if I'm attractive. Like, do people find me attractive? So that might be some of the ways that this transit is showing up for you. As well, for some of the, for all I've said about these binary distinctions, you might be feeling tension in two areas of your life, right? Between heartache and acceptance, between emotional expression and inhibitions, right? Like there is likely to be some tension showing up around some of these themes in your life. So, looking at this second week of October, we have quite a bit happening, and I really hope that you found this dive, this explanation, this exploration of some of those transits helpful. Again, do look for the tarot and astrological interpretations for each of the signs that I will be releasing tomorrow, so that you can take a look at maybe how this full moon might be showing up for you. And again, think back to March 29th, around that time, what seeds were being planted for you. All right. Well, that's it for today, my lovely friends. I hope to see you again. Please take care, and we'll see you in the next one.